and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding, and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. My guest today is a qualified accountant with over 28 years of experience. He is now the managing director of Mentoris Group, a business mentoring business, helping business owners on their business journey. He is also the founder of Momentum Masters, which focuses on rapid business growth through group training. Paul Farmer, welcome.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for making time to be on the show.
My pleasure. What do you think of my artwork?
I love it. It's great. Yeah, very, very cool. Is it a
It is something that no, it looks similar, but to be honest, I bought it when I was drunk. And so I woke up the next morning and I'd bought that and I'd donated some money to a mate who was cycling for cancer. So
great.
I thought even when I'm drunk, I can be productive. So it was. I didn't know whether to be shocked or impressed.
That's great. At least you didn't get like a tacky tattoo or something.
Bingo. Yeah. Well, fortunately, I was at home, so
yeah.
there was none of that going on.
Paul, I'd love to know. So 28 years of experience in the accounting space. How is it that you found yourself as a mentor now?
So interesting. I'll be honest. I stepped out of the accounting space, traditional accounting, probably about 2008, because I got to a point where I spent 3 weeks sitting with auditors, and we were discussing notes to the accounts, and I sat there and went, "There's got to be more to life than this." So realized that it's the strategic part of business that's the stuff that I really enjoyed. So getting out of accounting as such, I fast forward to where I am now, and I use that as a background, as an understanding of numbers. I'm finding a lot of people are frightened of numbers.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand them, have never been taught what they mean and how to make them work for them. And by that, they put the head in the sand and they just go, you know what? No, it's easier to not know than no. So fast forward to today, and I use that as a background to understand what's happening and what's happened in a business. But then I use that as a background. But to be honest, 90% of what I do now is help people shift their perception of what's possible in their business. But having an understanding of numbers allows me to say, okay, well, this is turning up. You say yes to all of these clients. That's great. But you're not making any money. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, they're not profitable. Well, you keep making the decision to say yes to those people and they keep turning up. They start sending their mates, and their mates want it cheaper than they're getting it. So you're doing a bucket load of work, but not making any money. So that a lot of business coaches or people in the strategy space, not having an understanding of numbers doesn't allow them to be able to understand the financial impact of their operational decisions. And so I kind of like a black sheep in the area, because I have that understanding. I have the ability to help people see what's possible. I help them shift the stuff that's in front of them, like that picture, to be able to say, well, how do we unlock what's possible and be able to then help them make it possible? Because as I say, 90% of what happens is the business owner is within here. That's where it turns up. And so to go from being in a world which was logical and it was based on technicality, to sitting back, listening to what's going on in someone's space and helping them navigate the barriers that are stopping them from having that, whatever they want. So that, for me, that's the thing that floats my boat. That's the thing that gets me going, because it's helping people, one, but also helping them see what's possible and then how they can actually make that possible. So I wasn't getting that in accounting, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
There was none of that was showing up. So I thought, you know what? I have this saying, which is nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yes, I said the same.
And so I sat there one day after I was about to do my fifth 20-hour day in a row in corporate,
Oh,
and I just sat down and I just went, you know what? What's going on? Is this healthy? No. Is this what I want to do? No. So who's going to change it for me? No one. Well, maybe it's up to me to take ownership for my own space and do something about where I was. And
yeah.
so I did.
And Paul, was there like that tipping point? Had it kind of just been a build-up of everything that led you to that moment?
Yeah, ironically, I was on first name basis with the two Kiwi guys who used to fill the vending machine on the 26th floor. They
Oh,
had because I'd have a picnic and a can of Coke for breakfast at
wow.
6:30 in the morning, pretty much every morning for probably Monday to Thursday for 6 months. And
Wow.
so that was my breakfast. And I remember one day going down to them and they're there filling up the vending machine and I'm putting my money in and they said, "Bro, what are you doing?" He said, "We'll sell it to you
Mm,
direct. We don't need it. You're the only one that buys stuff from here. We'll sell it to you
yeah,
direct. It'll be
that is
it'll be
connections.
cheap. It'll be cheaper." So at that point, it's like, And then I was in a meeting in a boardroom, and literally they said, "Your team can do this," and I said, "Well, we don't have time. I'm about to do my fifth 20-hour day."
Mm,
Someone on the other side of the table said, "No, we don't have time," and so I literally just went, "I'm done. I'm out.
yeah,
I can't keep doing this because I've asked for change, and the change won't happen." And while sitting in a room, I sat there and thought, you know what? Nothing changes if nothing changes, and if someone else
no.
isn't, if they're not going to work with us to help us, I've got to
Mm,
do something, and that was my way. Now, I resigned. I had 3 months, didn't know what I wanted to do, but I spent 3 months sitting talking to people about what was going on in their space, and I went, you know what? At the end of 3 months, I thought there's something in this.
mm,
This is something that I don't know what it is because I'd never had a real mentor. I'd never had a real coach. I'd never had any. The personal development was more accounting related development or some
mm,
leadership stuff, but it wasn't any of. So I didn't know what this thing was, which now turns out to be mentoring. I didn't know what that was. I just knew that I enjoyed helping people unpack what they were going through and how they could change what they were doing. And
mm,
so fast forward to today, as I said, I spend a lot of time sitting, listening, helping people understand their space, but then also helping them understand how they can navigate and change what they're doing to end up getting what it is that they actually want, whether it's
mm.
a business on their terms or whether it's saying no to rubbish clients so they can then fill their book with good clients.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, it was the moment was the build up. I was earning a bucket load of money. Don't get me wrong, but at the
Mm,
same time, it was like, I was letting everyone else down. I was letting myself down, and I was in a toxic environment where there was no support and there was no helping people. And that's what I was. Now I look back and go, well, I'm designed to help people, and there
mm.
was none of that in the environment that I was working in.
Thanks for sharing, Paul. I want to ask a question, and I'm asking this because there might be someone out there who's in that same cycle as what
Mm.
you were. It might not be having a picnic and did you say a Coke? Sorry, at 6:30 in the
Can of
morning.
Coke, can
Can
of
of
Coke
Coke.
and a picnic.
They might not be doing that, but they might have some other habit. It might be a donut or whatever the case may be. Did you
Yeah.
almost feel like you were in a? Were you aware that you were in some kind of a cycle that you were going through? Like, did it feel strange to you, or did it just become the norm?
So the interesting thing was the fact that I wasn't conscious of what I was doing.
Yeah, that's what I was
Reason
wondering.
reason what I was conscious of was the fear that was coming up around I'm not good enough.
Mm,
And if I do more, then I'll have more and people will look at me more favorably.
mm,
So that element of I'm not good enough, or I've got to make sure, and historically I've been someone that wants everyone to think I'm a great bloke, and I do
we
extra and
all
all
do,
that sort of
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So for me, that was the fear of being seen to be not good enough.
Mm.
That was driving a perfectionism. That was driving, I have to have everything right. Someone says, can you do this? It's like, yeah, I'll do that as quickly as possible. So that element of, so I look back now and I say, well, perfectionism doesn't exist. It only
No.
exists in my perception of what
Mm.
is. And so then it's all also about, well, my time's valuable, but I wasn't valuing my time or my health or my
Mm.
family life or anything. I was valuing everyone else in front of me.
Yes.
And I would
Yeah.
end up with what I would end up with. And cans of Coke and a picnic for breakfast that was my
Wow.
investment in me
Yeah.
because yeah, I look back and go, wow, what an idiot. But at the
Mm.
time, because I was wrapped up in the fear of not being good enough, then that was the way that I was dealing with it. Because it
Mm.
was for me it was an opportunity to be able to, because I'd go into performance reviews not knowing whether I was going to be sacked, whether I was going to be whatever, no idea.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
generally I'd come out and it's like, oh, you're in the top three in a 110 people organization. You're in the top three. It's like,
Mm.
well, would have been nice to know that along the way.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so yeah. So in terms of the context around, was I conscious of it? No, but I was conscious of the fear that was driving me, which is I need to be liked by everyone.
Mm.
And that perfectionism, that going the next level, that element of really putting myself second and putting everyone first,
Mm.
that was prevalent. And to be fair, it was driven by a corporate environment that was getting 20-hour days out of me, but not requiring to pay me for 20 hours a day.
No. And like you said as well, it impacts every single area of your life, your family life at home, your health,
Yeah.
and it's almost costing your soul, and you just don't feel as
Well,
appreciated as what you should be.
and the beauty is the fact that now I look back and I go, I always had a choice.
Mm.
But at the time, the fear of not being good enough, that was overriding my ability to choose what it is that I was doing because I
Mm.
didn't see I had a choice. My only choice was to keep feeding the thing that was giving me validation, which was extra work, longer work, harder hours. My family, mum was ringing me 3 nights a week to make sure I'd eaten. It's like, yeah, I've eaten.
Yeah.
It's like, no, vegetables and whatever. It's like, yeah, I've eaten. It's like, I got something for lunch and I'm good. So it was to be in that space again. I suppose there's an absence of mentors along the way,
Mm.
which potentially could have changed that if I'd had a mentor outside the corporate space who was someone that I was connected to would help because those in the corporate space generally are helping feed the corporate way of being, which
Yes.
means that the way they mentor is geared around the corporate getting what the corporate needs, which is 20-hour days.
Mm.
So,
Well,
yeah.
something you mentioned, I just want to back up a bit. You said you kept feeding the thing that gave you validation. I think so many of us don't even realize when we're in a situation, because I've been in a very similar situation where we constantly are feeding that thing or person or whatever it may be. And would you say that that goes back to our own self worth?
Yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't so the things that pop up for me is self-awareness,
Mm.
where we're not, and I'll use me as an example, where I wasn't aware of my own self and who I was and who I was being, then I was just accepting whatever was turning up.
Mm.
Where I wasn't valuing myself and putting everyone else first, then that came from a lack of awareness. Because if I'd have been aware of who I was and how valuable I was and whatever, I potentially would have said no.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to do 20-hour days. Yeah, you'll
Mm-mm.
get it when you get it because my time is valuable. But because I wasn't valuing myself,
Mm.
then I was looking for external validation rather than being aware and okay that internally, when I was delivering what I was delivering, I was getting that internally, well, I'd shut down internally because I was focusing everything on the
Mm.
external validation, which I was or wasn't getting. And when I wasn't getting it, I'd look for ways to be able to get more of it, which
Yeah.
is do more work and make sure that those at work get more than they ask for, and you'll get your
Mm.
validation.
And then, Paul, would you mind to walk us through your self worth journey? So, how did you kind of, you obviously stepped away, and then it sounds like you've had a lot of realizations since then. What was the process
Yeah.
that you went through?
So and ironically, I literally look out the window here and I look at the building I used to work in when
Oh
I did my
wow!
20-hour days.
Oh
So quite
my
quite
goodness,
ironically, it's
a
literally
good
it's to my
reminder.
left. Yeah, it's a good reminder of 20-hour days in that building is rubbish.
Yeah, yeah.
So so when I finished in corporate, I didn't understand what this 3 months of helping people was. So I asked,
Mm,
someone I know, I said, "What's this?" And he says, "I don't know, but he says it sounds like, is it life coaching?" I said, "I don't know, but what do you do?" And he said, "Well, I'm a life coach." And say, "Oh, right.
mm.
Well, it's good that you don't really know what you do, but you call yourself a life coach. Anyway, tell me
Yeah.
about that." And he said, "Well, this is what I do." And it's like, "Oh, well, that sounds like what I need." So I then I went through an organisation down in Melbourne and enrolled in a coaching course. Literally, probably did 85% of it, and I thought then that it was like, right, my job is to solve the problems of the world one person at a time.
Mm,
And I look back and I look at it and I go, well, that was less about me helping others, but it was more about me getting an understanding of me.
yeah.
Because the element of being able to coach others, you're looking to help others be able to understand themselves. And through that journey, I picked up some skill sets that allowed me to understand myself.
Mm,
And so I use the phrase get corporate out of me so I could be me.
yeah.
So in that space, I did some life coaching training, got to a point, it's like, oh, actually, now I have a bit of an understanding of why I feel like I feel, why I go looking for external validation because I
Mm,
wasn't really comfortable with me. And so I then internally worked on myself to then understand what it is and who I was and who I wanted to be. So then I could be comfortable in that space and go, well, this is who I am.
mm,
Yeah. I'm not the perfectionist. I'm just choosing to be all of this stuff.
yeah.
This is who I am is I look at who I am now, and that's the person I knew I wanted to be, but I didn't know how to be that person because I'd spent all of these years in corporate being someone else.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was becoming aware of who I was, and then adding to my skill set to be able to be comfortable just being me, being authentically me, being saying no to the stuff that didn't fit into my space. So again, look at
Mm,
that three things, which is, love and value yourself, tell yourself the whole truth, and take 100% responsibility for everything in your space.
mm,
So when I started to realize that I wasn't doing any of those things, then that's why everything was happening to me because the whole drama triangle. I'm the
yes.
victim, I'm the rescuer, I'm causing all of this rubbish, but I'm also
Mm,
rescuing myself by doing 20-hour days, and I'm also the victim as well, and it's all of this noise, which was probably one of the reasons why I wasn't looking internally,
mm,
and a lot of it was looking for external to help me because I didn't fully understand that I was causing all of this in my space. So
yeah.
that and so I having gone through the journey of realizing that when I did those, love and value yourself, tell yourself the whole truth, take
Mm,
100% responsibility for everything, then stuff starts to turn up for you as opposed to happening to you. And
Yes.
that space there, that changed, I'll say it changed my life because it opened up my eyes to become aware of what it was that was driving my ability to have things be on my terms as opposed to everyone else's.
Mm.
And that
And
became really
Paul,
powerful.
definitely, I've been on a very, very similar journey, and it is very powerful what you've just shared. And I'd love to know, what would your advice be to someone who perhaps is slightly aware that they are a bit like yourself? You know, they work in 20-hour days, they seeking that external validation. What would your advice be to someone who's perhaps in that space? Because let's face it, change is very, very hard, and it can sometimes be very overwhelming. What would be the first step that you would recommend that person takes?
I say two steps. One is an internal step, which is sit and step out of your space
Mm.
and look at yourself in your space, which sounds weird, but when you can step back and look at yourself in your own space and go, is that what I want to continue to do for years going forward? And if
Mm.
the answer is no, be okay that the answer is no or the answer is yes. Whatever comes up, comes up. But just
Mm.
be okay and go, right, well, if I want something different, then what is it that needs to change?
Yeah.
So internally, for me, that would be something that anyone can do.
Mm.
And often I'll find myself doing it generally probably once a year. I'll step back and I'll go, right, well, righto, what's idiot? What's going on in front of you that you're not changing? It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is turning up or that's turning up.
Mm.
But but then I look at it and go, well, I'm creating that. So if I can create it to come into my space, then and I want to change it, I can then choose to change it.
Yeah.
So internally, that's one thing that I find is quite useful. Externally is speak to someone who has experience in either helping people see what's possible. Now,
Mm.
often some people don't know where to go to speak to people like that
Yeah.
because let's be honest, there's a proliferation of people who say they can help people, and there's a proliferation of rubbish people who suggest they can help people, but they can't.
Mm. No.
And so
Agreed.
and so one of the questions comes up is, so who do you speak to? Well,
Mm.
again, it depends because not everyone is for everyone.
No.
Yeah, you can have coaches, you can have life coaches, you can have support, you can have mentors, you can have um, and so yeah, everyone's different.
Mm.
But what I would suggest is to reach out to someone that you may know in your space and ask them about their journey. Just just like I'm sharing here. It's,
Yes.
someone that's gone on a journey that may be similar to say, well, how did you go about it? What were the
Mm.
questions that you asked? How curious did you get about yourself? And when you went to go looking for someone, who did you speak to? What was your experience? Did you find some routes that were just they were terrible?
Mm.
Yes. Did you find people that were quality? Yes. So again, just be conscious that not everyone's for everyone, and not
Yes.
everyone is wrapped up in what it is that they say they can do. So be really conscious about your gut feel. If you feel like someone isn't a match for you, your gut generally knows. How often
Yes.
is it wrong? Very rarely. So,
Mm.
trust your gut, and then get an understanding of what who they may be, what they've done, and even speak to some people they've worked with previously to go,
Mm.
can you tell me about your experience? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was wondering, Paul, I know I'm aware of this answer, but I'd love to hear your opinion on it. What are some of the key things you've seen when a business owner does have that deeper understanding of themselves, or how important is that personal discovery or deeper understanding of oneself when you are a business owner?
Oh, it's huge. It's
Mm,
huge. The self-belief, that is one of the biggest things that we work on when we first start working with a business owner. We don't
mm,
we don't even we don't even look at the business. So we'll do a 12-month cash projection, but then we take that and we then have a conversation with the business owners about, and the first question I always ask business owners, so what's the feeling in your business at the moment? And
right.
guess what? They tell you all the rubbish that isn't working,
Mm,
guaranteed. So
yeah.
then we then go to work on, okay, well, tell me about why that's turning up. What's
Mm,
this? What's that? What's that? So, in terms of looking in that space, a lot of what they're looking for is the ability to be able to keep making decisions and keep making quality decisions. And when their awareness starts to fade, or they start to their self belief starts to take a few hits, then their confidence starts to go, and then all of
mm,
a sudden the uncertainty starts to come back in. I'm not sure. I don't know. Or I'm not sure which way to go. And at that
yeah.
point they go, right, well, who do I speak to? Who can help me? Do you go to an accountant? Generally, no. Do you go to a lawyer?
Mm,
No. Do you go to an insurance broker? No. Most of the time, if you're looking for a sounding board, either it's a particular technical piece, and then you would go to an accountant or a lawyer or whatever. But
mm,
if you're looking for someone to help you in a space to be able to keep making good decisions going forward, who do you speak to?
yeah.
Do you go to a life coach? Generally, no, because I don't need life coaching. But my
No.
confidence is the thing. But people look through the business lens and they go, "Oh, it's my business that's suffering. I need
Mm,
someone who's got a business context." Well, do you go to someone who has a? I was talking to an accountant this morning. And he said, I look after the financial side of things, but I don't help people with strategy. I don't help
yeah.
them shift the stuff that's not working for them. He said, I don't do any of that. I just look at the financial piece. So that awareness for me, where someone is aware of themselves, are okay, that they don't have to be all things to everyone.
Yeah.
It allows them to not have to be all things to everyone. And so what it does is it allows them to sit in a space where they can be themselves, they can be authentically them, they can say yes to the stuff they want, they can say no to the stuff they don't want, and they can be honest with themselves, but honest with those around them. And what
Mm,
typically turns up is you start to attract those that are attracted to the authentic, honest, aware person,
mm,
isn't a people pleaser or a yes person. And they turn up and they go, well, I know what I'm going to get. So
mm,
what I've started to find is those that want an honest, direct um, response about their space. They know that they're going to get it from me because there is no
yeah.
fluff. It
Mm,
is what it is. But that only comes by being conscious and aware of myself and being comfortable being myself.
mm,
And to do that, then the self-belief is there, the confidence is there, the awareness is there, and the ability to choose is there, which then means I can take that and go, well, whatever comes up, comes up. I'm
yeah.
okay. Left, right, up, down, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's like, okay, am I wrapped up in meeting expectations or whatever? No, no. I'm just me. And
Mm,
so because I'm comfortable being me, then what comes up doesn't matter. Like, as I said before, running a full day workshop based on one slide.
yes.
How many people would sit in a room or be in a room with 12 other people, trade based people as well.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
they're not shy flowers,
No.
and talking about feeling and emotion in business with one slide
Wow.
for the whole day.
Mm,
So from an awareness perspective and a self-belief perspective and a confidence perspective, when you're okay with yourself, You're okay with what may or may not turn up, which
Mm.
then allows you to be in a space that allows others to see that they also can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're not self-aware and you're not comfortable and you don't believe in yourself, then you start to second guess the decisions that you make. And when that
Mm.
comes up, you'll put something off for 3 weeks, but you're still going to make the same decision 3 weeks down the track. It's grown teeth, it's got hair, it's taken
Yeah.
its own, it's got a new life,
Life form. Yeah.
but
Yes.
it's exactly the same decision that you would make today that you'll make in 3 weeks' time. So some of the
Interesting.
conversations I've had with clients is you can either make the decision today or
Mm.
you can make it in 3 weeks' time. It's the same decision. It's just you're choosing to wait 3 weeks and get a
Mm.
bucket load more information, whereby you could do that today, make it today, and if it turns out to be stellar, you've saved yourself 3 weeks of
Yeah.
stress, overwhelm, anxiety, all of that.
Mm.
If it turns out to not be stellar, then you can make another decision and you can go again.
Yeah.
Either way, you save yourself 3 weeks of thinking about something that you can say today.
Yeah, definitely. And Paul, what would your advice be to someone who is a yes person? They struggle to say no. They feel guilty when they say no, but they are finding themselves. And I'm speaking from experience. They're speaking. They've, their calendar's fully booked. They struggle to say no. I have improved. But what would your advice
Yeah.
be to someone who's in that space?
First question is understanding why you continue to say yes. Because
Mm.
there's a need to be fulfilled that's not being fulfilled when you
Yeah.
say no.
Mm.
So when you're in a space is understanding, and we go back to that, love and value yourself.
Mm.
If you were to value yourself, then you would say, well, what's urgent and important to me may not necessarily correlate to urgent and important for other people.
Mm.
So then if I come back to me and go, well, what's urgent and important for me? I'm going to value myself. To be able to value myself then allows me to have conversations with people to say, I'm going to be honest. The first available time we've got to have this is this date here. If
Mm.
that doesn't work, that's okay. Because when you value yourself, I have this saying, which is my house, my rules.
Yeah.
And so when you're in a space to be able to say, you know what, if my timeline, my time, the way I do things is the way I do things. And if that doesn't fit in
Mm.
with other people, that's okay.
Yeah.
But often we don't say what suits us because the other person might go, oh, well, that doesn't suit me, so I'm out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what it may do is it may open up an opportunity for someone else
Mm.
to step into that space, and you valued your time and your space and your schedule to say, you know what, this space is not available, is giving up that window so you can do something that's for you, not for someone else, giving up that window to say, well, is it worth it?
Mm.
Yeah. If I was to value myself, would I say no to this? Or would I say no, not yet? Or would
Yeah.
I say, I'm going to be honest, we're pretty busy at the moment. The first available time we've got is this, but we've got 2 dates. These are the first 2 dates. Which would you
Mm.
like? And then all of a sudden, what they start to do is they start to go, oh, actually, I'll take that one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I know there's only two. So I'll take that. So when when you love and value yourself, you'll see your skill set, your time, your expertise, the value that you add, you see that as valuable, not simply a way to be able to neglect it so other people get whatever they get.
Yeah. Makes
And there's
sense.
again, another saying, which is it's our responsibility to take people on the journey we want them to go on.
Yeah.
If we don't, they will take us on their journey, and that could end up bloody anywhere.
Very true.
And
Been there
generally,
before.
yeah, generally it's on their timeline, their
Yeah.
pricing in their favor, and who tends to lose in that instance?
Mm.
The person that says yes to stuff
Yeah.
that's not on their timeline, not on their terms, not on their pricing. But I can't say no because the tap will turn off.
Yeah.
No, what? You're good at what you
No.
do. They'll keep
Yeah.
turning up. And if I say it's not until next week, then and someone goes, "Oh, I can't wait," are they really your people?
Mm. It's a good
No.
point.
Yeah. Fear of the tap turning off. That I hear it in the
Mm.
trade space all the time. It's like, "Oh, but if I say no to them, then, all the work will stop." I say, "No. You're probably gonna be able to charge a premium because you're telling them, you're giving them certainty that this is." But then they look at it and say, "Well, you must be busy because you've
Yeah.
got all." It's like, "Yeah, these are my first 2 dates. In 3 weeks' time, these are the first 2 dates I've got. Do you want
Mm.
it or you don't? Yeah, I'll take that one. Righto, lock it in."
Yeah.
They don't need to know that you've got, 3 days allocated to you not being in the office and not doing work or whatever. They don't
Of
need to know
course.
that. My calendar has everything blocked out that needs to be blocked out, so people
Yeah.
only ever see what's available. And so if
Mm.
you want something, here's my calendar, jump in there, find a space, and they go, "Oh, geez, you haven't got much left." It's like, "No, I'm busy. I've got plenty
Yeah.
going on." So the fact that there's days in there that are allocated to be out of the office doesn't matter. They don't need to
Mm.
see that. They just see that it's blocked out. "Oh, you got plenty going on." So, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah. I'm glad you shared that. I'm a work in progress because what I used to do is then I'd have a day or 2 blocked out and be like, "Oh, no problem. I can fit you in on those days." I
True,
have been working on my self-worth very, very hard, but yes, back in the
true.
day, I'd be like, "Oh, no problem. I'll just fit you in. Yeah, and there's my day off gone down the drain, but never mind."
And so I used to be the same.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I sat there and went, well, and I had this conversation with a client because he was driving home and he
Mm.
chose to do a cash job on the way home. And I
Ah.
said, so how much did you get for that cash job? He said, oh, $300. And I said, so that 2.5 hours or 2 hours or whatever it is, I said, that 2 hours that you've chosen to do on the way home, I said, does that mean that that much family time is worth
Mm.
$300? And
Yeah.
he was literally sitting next to his wife, and she chuckled. And I said to him, I said, I'll be honest. I said, you've chosen to do that for $300 and give up an hour
Mm.
and a half or 2 hours of family time. So to
Yeah.
me, that shows me that you value, let's say it was an hour,
Mm.
you choose to value family time at $300 an hour because
Yeah.
you've chosen to say yes to that over spending time with your family.
Mm.
And he just
Interesting
at that point,
perspective.
yeah, at that point, he just went, "Oh." And I said, and his wife's looking at me and she's going, "Geez, I love you." Yeah. And I said to him, I said, "Look, let's be honest. Where you choose to value other people over
Mm.
yourself, then you're making your time worth whatever it is that they are prepared." And then you're saying, well, if someone's going to pay me $300 to do what it is in my own time, then I'm choosing to value my time at $300.
Yeah.
If that means I'm giving up my own time, then it's like, well, you know what? For what purpose do you block off stuff? So you
Mm.
can do your own stuff. Well, if that means that I'm prioritizing other people, then do I value my own time? No. Well, if I don't value my time, then I'm not going to value it anywhere. So
Mm.
I'm going to get what turns up as opposed to setting boundaries. And, the amount of clients that I speak to that once they start setting boundaries, the structure and the certainty in their space just
Yeah.
changes like that. Because
It
then they
does.
see how valuable they are, their
Mm.
home time is, their time is, and how much they haven't been valuing it, which
Mm.
means that the journey that they've been taking people on is other people's journey because they get access to the time that doesn't generally or shouldn't be made available, but it is
Yeah.
because they're good for it or whatever. It's like you're still devaluing your own time because you're choosing to let other people dictate where you spend your own time.
Yeah. And when I actually started implementing boundaries, I found the time I did have off, I could actually really enjoy it a lot more and not have to worry
Yeah.
about work stuff. Because when I was the other way around, I'd actually start resenting work, resenting my business, working so hard. Should I get a job? All those horrible thoughts
But
everyone
guess
has.
but guess what? You weren't resenting all those things. You were resenting yourself for
Mm,
letting yourself
yeah.
choose to not set boundaries, and it was showing up, and you were
Yes.
making it all about, everyone else is doing it to me. It's like, well, who,
Yeah.
in the nicest possible way, who's the idiot that's
Yeah.
saying yes
I
to no
was.
boundary? Yeah, me. That was
Definitely
me.
you. Yes,
All over
yes,
it.
and I've had to catch myself. Like I said, last year's really been working on things. I've had to catch myself because I would go back to the same behavior again, and I was like, no, no more, because I'm burnt out. I was exhausted. My calendar was
Yeah,
booked from Monday to Sunday. I had something on every single
yeah.
day and night. It was just too much.
One question that it's an easy question. It is, if I was someone that valued myself,
Mm,
what would I say?
yeah,
Whenever you're in a space where because the first thing that comes up is asking yourself a question. It's like, what's a great question or what's a rubbish question?
yeah,
Yep. Ask a rubbish question, get a rubbish answer, make it mean something rubbish, take rubbish action, get rubbish results, judge yourselves for getting rubbish results.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
Or you can ask a great question, get a great answer, make it mean
Mm,
something great, take great action, get great results, and then feel great. And then also, in the absence of judgment, feel great because you're then judging yourself based on the fact that you've done all this great stuff. But what
mm,
starts it is a question. So
yes.
if you have a great question to start it, then you sit there and go, well, if I valued myself, what would I do? And it's
Mm,
like, well, I'd say no, because my family time or my own time or my ability to shut off the noise, like old mate up here behind me,
yeah.
it's like if they could pull a curtain across and quieten that noise down, it'd give you the ability to recharge quicker and you'd be able to give
Mm,
more to those that you are giving to.
yeah.
And what starts it? A question. So if you've got a great question, like if I was someone who valued myself, what would I say to this? And
Mm,
if the answer is, I would say, you know what, we're booked up until here. We've got 2 dates. Which would you like? Then I would say it.
mm. Yeah,
But if I
powerful.
didn't, yeah, if I didn't, I wouldn't. But starting it with a question, often you don't know what the question is, the right question. You know the rubbish question, which is, oh, what am I giving up? If I say no, they're not going to give me the $300, $400, $500,
Yeah.
whatever it is. What am I missing out on? Well, that's a rubbish question. And then you get a
Mm.
rubbish answer. Then you make it mean, and all of a sudden you're starting your journey down the rubbish slippery dip
Yes,
to end up
and giving
judging
up your
yourself.
time. Mm.
Bingo. As opposed
Yeah.
to, what if I knew a great question?
Mm.
Start with a great question, and you're setting yourself up to go down the path of getting better results more often. But again, that comes from the self belief of, do I focus on the negative question, or do I have the awareness to go, no, no, that's not a resourceful question. This
Yeah.
one, this is a question that I can ask, which will help me set me up to go down this path as opposed to the rubbish path.
Mm. No, thanks for sharing, Paul. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And we have the ability to influence it and to be
Mm.
able to, again, as I say, the simple question of, if I was to value myself, what would I do? I'd
Mm.
say no, or I'd say no, not yet, or I'd say, you know what, we're fully booked up. Can is it okay if I get it to you at this point here? Sure.
Yeah.
And most people say yes, but we don't
Yes.
ask because the fear of there might be a no.
Mm.
Oh, they might say no, they might go somewhere else. It's like, well, if they're not prepared to wait a week or 2 weeks or whatever, maybe they're not your people.
Mm. No, that's a great point.
Yeah. Maybe they're not going to
Yeah.
value you. They're not going to pay what you want them to pay. And it's going to be on their timeline. So we go back to the whole, if we don't take people on the journey we want them to go on, then they will take
Mm.
us on their journey.
Yeah,
It's like the tail wagging the dog consistently.
definitely.
It's
It is.
tiring. And
Yeah,
you
it
can see
is.
why there's so much noise going on because of the
Yeah.
fact that you're not in control of the journey that you're going on.
Mm. Paul, my next question, I'm a big advocate for business advisory, mentoring. I firmly believe that I wouldn't be the business owner, leader, and human that I am if it wasn't for it. I come across a number of business owners who seem to be quite close-minded to the idea. They seem to think, that they don't need a service like that or need that human in their life. And it drives me nuts because I'm like, oh my goodness, you could just like gain so much value from it if you just stop being so narrow-minded.
Oh,
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I love those people because I have a curious mind. And
Right.
so for me, I'm very conscious about someone's space is their space. Yeah.
Mm,
Now if they're not prepared to think about the potential upside of what it is that might come from speaking to someone who can help them unlock their space,
mm.
then I get and all my clients tell me, they said, you can slap us metaphorically, but it's delivered in such a way that it's just like we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And so the ability to be able to have people see that, and so I'll give you an example. I was talking to a client a couple of weeks ago, and I said, so tell me about what's the feeling in your business at the moment? It's like this, and this. Oh yeah. So what does it feel like? And they go, oh, it's rubbish. Like da da da. It's like, oh,
Mm,
so what's going to change? Nothing. Well, that's good. I said, so that feeling you got at the moment, just get used to that because that
yeah.
shit's going to keep turning up.
Mm,
And I said, if you're frustrated with it now, in 6 months' time, imagine how much 6 months of this frustration is going to keep piling up on you. And I said,
mm.
if that's what you want, just keep doing what you're doing. You
Yeah.
don't need anyone. You're successfully bringing all of that onto yourself now.
Yes.
So just keep doing it. Yeah, you'll keep getting
Mm.
frustrated, and you'll keep getting what you're getting. So,
And stressed.
if that's what you want, just keep doing it. Yeah. But if
Mm,
you don't want it, then I've got a feeling that maybe we've got to shift the way that you look at what you're doing, how you're doing, who you've got around you, and what it is that you actually want, rather than this rubbish that keeps turning up because you keep doing what it is that you keep doing. Yeah.
mm,
So if you want to change, maybe there's a conversation we can have. If you're not prepared to change, that's okay.
mm.
But you don't get to whinge and bitch and moan about it because you're not choosing to do anything about it.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, shut up and get on with it. But
Mm,
you're not earning the right to whinge and bitch and moan because you're not doing anything about it.
mm.
If you want to do something about it, or if you want to whinge and bitch and moan, then cool. At least if you're doing something about it, you're earning the right to be able to have your say about what's going on or what's not working or what. But if you're just doing what you're doing, you're not prepared to change, then all I can say is just grit your teeth and bear it because it's just going to keep turning up.
Mm,
As simple as that. And if they're not prepared to change, sometimes you just sit there and go, you know what? This is your space.
mm.
Yeah. If you want your house to burn down, put the hose away. Just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep cooking fatty food without the fan on. All that sort of stuff. You're just
Yeah.
sitting there going, if you want that to keep turning up, that's okay. It's
Mm,
your space. If I look at someone in that space and I take away the element of judgment, because if I look at them and say, you can have so much better, I'm just judging them based on what they are doing because I
right.
think they could do better.
Mm,
So my external view of their space is my view of their space.
mm.
And so I choose to give it a meaning based on what I think they could do, but they're not doing. So the
Yeah.
element of frustration is me looking at something that they could be doing, but if they don't see it, it's not my space.
Mm-mm.
It's not our
Yeah.
space, it's their space. So then you sit there and you can go, well, would you like me to give you some areas where I think you might be able to change? If they say no, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not my space. They can continue to get what they're getting because obviously they're more comfortable putting up with the rubbish that's turning up as
Yeah.
opposed to changing. And for whatever reason in their space, they may not feel comfortable changing and they're okay to keep sitting in the same space. But
Mm.
again, it's not my space, it's their space. And so
Yeah.
there's a a picture, couple of pictures that I have, which essentially you've got sympathy, which is someone standing in a boat that's sinking.
Mm.
Sympathy is where you jump into the boat with them, holding a rope, but you're going, well, we're both in this boat now and we're both sinking, so we're both buggered.
Mm-mm.
We've got a solution, but we can't use it because we're both in here together.
Yeah.
And then you go to empathy, which is someone standing on the shore with a rope, someone's in a boat that's sinking, they
Mm.
still have to ask for help. You can't help them because you're waiting for them to say, can you throw me the rope?
Mm.
So by staying external to someone's space, it allows you to be empathetic, but also they've got to want to ask for help.
Yeah.
If they're not prepared to ask for help, you can't help them because generally they'll sit there and say, oi, get out of my space. I didn't ask for this.
Mm.
Yeah. You can drop breadcrumbs or you can lead a horse to water. But if they don't want to drink, it's like, I can't make them. I can show
No.
them, I can get frustrated. It's like, rah. But at the end of the day, it's like, would you like some help or not? If you don't, that's okay. But
Mm.
just shut up about whinging about not having anything else. You're just going to keep getting what you're getting. And if that's what you want, probably best I don't get involved because you're probably not going to like what you hear from me anyway.
Yeah. Do you think it's sometimes people's ego that gets in the way? Because I come across,
It,
obviously, been in the branding space. I come across a number of very, successful business owners. They've got a team, they've got everything going, but they'll try and sit and do their own graphic design. And I just don't get it. I'm like, this is not a productive use of your time. Do you
yeah,
reckon it's the ego that gets in the
of
way?
course it is. And
Yeah.
especially in blokes, I'll be honest.
Yes. Yes. I've
So
noticed that. Yeah.
we can do everything. And if we can't,
Mm.
and we have to admit that we can't do everything, then we have to admit that we're not man enough
Mm.
to be able to fix all the problems and solve all the solutions of the world. And it's just graphic design. I can do that and all that
Yes.
sort of stuff. And so you see, it's like, oh, I run a business. Well, I can do graphic design. Fuck, anyone can do that. So
Yes.
yeah,
Especially
so
with
you
Canva.
sit yeah, that's right. So you sit there and you just go, you know what? It's if someone isn't prepared, and so people in that space, it's ego, but it's also that element of I don't feel like they're fully self-aware,
Mm.
and there's an insecurity about having to admit and be vulnerable to say I
Yeah.
don't know everything. I'm not
Mm.
good at everything, and they unless they're prepared to admit that, then they're never going to admit it. And so they're never going to say, well, I can't do everything and I'm not an expert in everything or whatever. The ego says, no, 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 you're a man. You
Yeah.
have to. And I'll say man because I am one.
Mm.
But it's like,
Mm.
oh, I can't admit that I can't do that because then people will see I'm weak. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden they'll start to not see me as a strong leader. But
Mm.
often what I find is when you sit there and go, well, I'm not the expert in everything. I'm
Yeah.
these are the things I know I'm not good at. That's why I connect with people to be able to have them be able to do the stuff that
Mm.
I sit there and go, like, there's a connection of mine. He does systems and processes
Okay.
in the nicest possible way. I couldn't think of anything worse than sitting down and running through someone's business and
Mm.
putting systems and processes in place.
Mm.
I talk for hours on end, and for me, that's where the value for me is because that's the stuff I love doing. But
Mm.
to sit down and put a bucket load of systems and processes in
Oh,
place, I'd rather pay him.
yeah,
It's like
same.
Bruce, I love you, because of the
Yeah.
fact that I don't have to do any of this stuff. I just like, can you do this? Sure. I refer him to all my clients. It's like
Yeah.
speak to them because he loves systems and process, but he's wired
Mm.
to be like that.
Yeah,
I'm
some
not.
people definitely are. Yes.
That's right. And if I'm not
Mm.
self-aware enough to be okay to be vulnerable, then I'm not going to admit that I can't do everything. So I'm going
Mm.
to do everything until I can't, like me
Yeah.
back in corporate. I'm going to do everything because I, I'm not comfortable admitting and being vulnerable about the fact that I can't do something or someone else
Mm.
can do it better than I can.
Mm.
And in that space, you're sitting there going, well, if I'm not comfortable with myself or I'm insecure with myself, then, and again, I'll talk generally about the male species. But
Mm.
I look at that and, geez, I sounded like David Attenborough then.
You
But
did actually.
yeah.
This is a
And so I
sloth.
said, yeah, yeah, it's like, yeah, this is a slow. So, but in terms of looking at it, it's like, well, you know what? If I have to admit that I can't do something, and again, I'll generalize. If I have to then
Mm.
get a lady to come and do what it is that I can't do,
Yes.
then a lot of men struggle with saying,
Mm.
"Oh, my ego says I can't do that, so I'm going to get someone else to do it," and then
Mm.
have a female come in and do it. Then that takes the ego takes another hit because
This is
I've got to admit that I'm all of that stuff shows up. But
mm.
if you're not aware of yourself and comfortable that you don't have to have all the answers, you don't have to the fear of I'm not good enough. If
Mm.
you're okay to admit that you don't have all the answers and you're not the expert in whatever, then when you're comfortable, you just go, that's not me. That
Yeah.
person is going to be better. It's going to be more efficient. And it means I don't have to do it. Oh, even better.
Yes. So good. I actually find it
Yeah.
really liberating. Like, I mean,
Oh, it's
at our
beautiful.
school, they don't teach you how to run a business. So through work with my advisor and all that. But, I brought on team. And when I realized that my team could do things better than what I can, I actually found it really freeing. Like it was confronting, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, but it was
Yeah.
freeing because then I could actually free up my time to do business development, do the podcast, all the other things that I enjoy. And
Bingo.
my team brought their values. So I really
And
found it very liberating.
it's so to sit and what in our business, what we've created is what I classify as a circle of trust. So
Mm.
we've created in here in Brisbane, we've created sort of 40 to 50 professional advisors across all industries and that
Great.
allows us to not have to be the experts of giving tax advice, giving
Yeah.
legal advice, insurance, graphic design, all of that.
Marketing,
So
all
the
of it. Yeah.
all of it, all of any professional
Mm.
services, we've got one or two people who potentially can do that for us. So the beauty is the fact that we can stick to our strategic resets or strategy day facilitations or half days or whatever. We can stick to that. And someone will say, "Oh, I need an accountant." It's like now people come to me and they know that we've got access to all of these people. And so
Great.
that circle of trust allows us to sit there and say, you know what, that's not us. But would you
Mm.
like me to recommend someone? And they go, yeah. So it's like, bang, here you go.
Yeah.
Speak to them and have a chat
Mm.
with them. And if they work, they work. If they don't, that's okay. But they're people that we know, like, and trust. And so that
That's
makes it easier
important.
for us. Yeah. Makes it easier for us to be able to say, you know what? We don't do legal documents. We don't
Mm.
do systems and processes. We don't do marketing. We don't do branding. That's not
Yeah.
our jam. Our jam is to help you reset your space and then connect you where you may have gaps in the people you need.
Mm.
We then connect you with those people. And you say liberating when you don't have to be 50 advisors for a business owner. It's like, damn, how good
Yeah.
is this? Yeah,
Yeah, very powerful. Yeah.
that's right. And you can do the stuff
Mm.
you actually want to do in the time frame that you allocate to do it, as opposed to, right, well, I've got to try and organize an HR piece of work here, and I've got to organize the legal contracts, and I've all organize all of this. It's like
Mm.
that's tiring.
It is. Yes, very
Yeah,
much so.
it's tiring, and it takes up time, effort, resource, and bandwidth that those in your space need from you. But when you're
Mm.
putting it into stuff that doesn't either you can't control or it's not in your space, it's just chewing up energy that could go to the stuff you actually want. Like in your
Mm.
case, running podcasts. It's like, I get an essence that you just get a buzz
I
from
do.
learning about other people.
I
And
do.
so
I
when
love
you
it.
can yeah, and when you can spend more time doing that and less
Mm.
time doing the mundane rubbish that you have other people to do,
Mm.
you just we get the ability to influence the feeling in our space. Yeah.
Definitely.
And to be
Yes.
able to do that, to be able to say no to stuff that you don't want to do
Mm.
means you can say yes to the stuff you do want to do.
Very
And
true.
how does that reshape the feeling of your space?
Mm.
Incrementally.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Paul, I'd love to know how brand has played a role in your business.
Oh, brand. So interestingly enough, the name of my business, Mentoris, was it actually was conceived by my wife, my now
Mm.
wife,
Yeah.
because we were friends for ages, and she came up with it because I said,
Oh,
"Well,
great.
I'm thinking about doing some looking and helping people, whatever. What do you think?" She said, "Why don't you do something about Latin?" I went,
Mm.
"Okay, right. Well, what's that?" And she said, "Well, what's Latin for mentor? Mentoris." It's like, sure. And then
Great.
and so it was like, actually, you know what? That makes sense.
Mm.
So in terms of initially, as I said, I thought I had to be a life coach, and I thought I had to spend all my days helping one person at a time deal with
Yeah.
their own personal situations, which
Mm.
was a reflection of what I was trying to do to myself, but I was doing it for other people. And then 12 months in, I went, you know what? You've got a finance background, you've got a strategy background, you've got a leadership background, you've got a corporate background, and you're sitting having coffee with people trying to help them in their personal lives. It's like, you're an idiot. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So so then I was like, well, okay. So then from a, I'll call it a personal brand,
Mm.
I've taken um, what's in the market at the moment around business coaching, business advisory, uh, life coaches. The word coach, will either give you chills, or it'll
Mm.
make you shudder, or it'll bring up nightmares or whatever. And so
Yeah.
from a branding perspective, what I've done is I've shifted the way that I'm perceived in the space as being the no fluff, the no fuss. It's just you want honest, direct, human-based interaction.
Mm.
That's what we do, and as
Yeah.
simple as that. And so we focus on helping people see what's possible so they can make it possible. So
Mm.
there is no rubbish. There is no, at one point I was one of those people that had to make sure that everyone was happy and everyone was getting what they wanted and whatever. And, it worked for certain people, but it just, again, wasn't me. So from a
Mm.
branding perspective, a personal branding, in the market branding perspective, away from just logos and whatnot.
Yes.
So up until now, in the consulting, coaching, strategy space, I've built a brand which is based on honesty,
Mm.
and it's based on no fuss. If you want direct, we're direct. If you don't, maybe you need it, but if you're not ready for it, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it
Mm.
shifted away from, as you mentioned, I have to say yes to everyone. I might have to make them feel good, and I have to be the person that's going to change their lives and be in their lives forever.
Mm.
Well, we've shifted from that to, no, our job's not to be in their life forever. Our job is to help them as quickly as possible so they can get the maximum value as quickly as possible so they don't need us.
Mm.
And often they'll need us to a point, then they'll go off and do whatever they do, and then I'll get a phone call.
Okay.
It's like, "Hey, we need to tune up. We've gone back to our ways."
Which
And
is
so
why I
they
always have an advisor because I know myself.
that's
I'll
right.
revert.
That's it. So what they do is they go away and they
Oh.
say, "I think we're good. We're gonna go
Mm.
away. We're gonna work on us and work
Ah.
on what we're doing, whatever." But at a point in time, they say, "Hey, can we get another couple of hours because we
Mm.
just there's some stuff that's starting to creep in that we're just starting to feel like we're losing control."
Mm.
And then I come back in and we have a 2-hour reset, and they sit there and go, "That's all I needed. I just
Really?
needed that
Wow. Yeah.
reset to get them back on track."
Mm.
And their comment is, "We don't feel like we need you consistently, but there'll
Right.
be there'll be times where we need access to you so
Mm.
we can bounce stuff off you, or we can do this." So, we set it up in a number of different ways so they can have an hour a month, unstructured. They can just
Okay.
ring over the course of the month. They can ring and say, "You know what? Have you got 20 minutes?" Sure. You get an
Mm.
hour each month, so you can use it however you want to use it. Or they can have 2 hours structured, which is we sit in a room and we do some Zoom work, but predominantly we like to be face to face.
Yeah.
But we have a structured set 2 hours, and we sit. And again, the first question is, so what's the feeling in your business?
Mm.
And
It's a good
most of the time,
gauge.
I have no idea where we're going to go. I'll be
Mm.
honest. But when I ask that question, what generally turns up is the stuff that needs to be talked about,
Yeah.
and that is the stuff that gets talked about.
Mm.
So there's no if I put my own agenda on someone, it's me putting my agenda on them.
Yeah.
But it's not my space. We go back to the conversation we had before. It's not my
Mm.
space. It's their space. So what do they need in their space to help shift their space to what's possible as opposed to the
Mhm.
stuff that's turning up at the moment? And if I walk in and go, we're going to talk about sales today, and they've got issues with people, how
Yeah.
is how is that helping them? It's not.
Mm.
It's just me shoving my own agenda into their space. It's like,
Mm.
no, that's not the way that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I must say I really thrive on having that repetition of meeting with my advisor every Friday, same time, same
Yep.
place. I actually look
Yeah.
forward to it because the week will like all these things will happen and I make all my notes. And then I just find it's really good to like decompress, debrief on certain things. And then I just feel like it kind
Yeah.
of resets me for the week ahead. And
And
I don't
it's
know
perfect.
how business owners don't have like a mentor or a coach or an advisor of
Oh,
some sort because I actually think it
they
makes you function better.
they do it
Mm,
easily because of the fact that they don't get the upside.
that's true.
They get the comfort in the noise.
Mm,
They're in this part here as
yeah,
opposed to the beige. So you're in the beige because you have the noise throughout the week, and then all of a sudden you go back to here because you unpack,
yeah.
you get yourself back into a space, and then all the noise comes up, and then you go again. Other
Mm,
people, they revel in the rubbish that keeps turning up
and get
because
caught
they
in the
play
cycle.
they play the
Mm,
victim.
mm,
Again,
makes
it's like,
sense.
oh, victim, and then they can be the rescuer because they jump in and help. It's like, it's okay, you're busy,
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
stuff on. It's okay to
That's
not say yes
hate
to.
that word.
Yeah, all of
Ah,
that stuff just keeps self-propagating. So you're sitting there
mm,
going, "Oh, well, that keeps turning up," and they play all of it. They cause it. They are the victim, but then they're also the one that jumps in and says, "It's okay. Everyone else
yeah,
is busy as well, and everyone else has got rubbish going on, and I don't
that's
have
all
to do
good.
that because I'm like it's all good. I like everyone else." So the fact that
Yeah.
you've got structure is perfect because the
Mm,
structure for you is a weekly call.
yeah.
The structure for others might be a monthly call.
Mm,
Yeah, it might
of
be a
course.
bi-monthly, it might be a 3 monthly, it might be 6 monthly, it might be an annual strategy day where they reset once a year, but they do 1 or 2 days where they pull it apart and they put it back together. And they may
Mm,
not need anything throughout the year, but there might be times where they just go, "Can I book in?" So the way we do it is we just have links to our calendar and they can just
great.
book in. If they want an
Yeah.
hour, they can book in. If they want 2 hours, they book in.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at
So
least
so yeah,
getting some of that advice. Yeah.
yeah, and the beauty is the fact that it's not us dictating to them. It has to be every week. We work in the space to say, let's go for 3 months, and
Mm,
let's look at what it is that you feel you may need in over the next 3 months. And at the end of three
yeah.
months, we go again. It's okay. Well, what do you want for the next 3 months? You're all good, right? Our job is
Mm.
to get people running or to spend as much or as little time in their business as they need us to be in their business.
Mm. I think one of the things I really value about having an advisor is that sometimes I'll go to a session and I'm like, right, I'm going to speak about these things here and I've got it all sorted. And then I'll go see Paul, also Paul, and then he just kind of opens my mind to something completely different that I hadn't even considered or, different things
Yeah,
to think about. And I find like I'll sit and ruminate on it the whole weekend. And then Monday rolls around and it's just like your business can go in a whole nother direction or it kind of just sets you in a
yeah,
whole different path. So I absolutely love it.
yeah.
It's really great.
Which is perfect because it
Mm,
provides more that whole what's possible.
yes.
Because when you don't have access to those that get you to think differently,
Mm,
then what's possible is limited to your ability to see what's possible,
yeah.
which is limited to what is coming at you because that's all you see. What you
Mm.
focus on is what you get. So you sit there and what's coming at you, that's all you see. But then all it takes is a curious question to go, oh, what about something
Yes.
over here? That's all it
Yeah.
takes. Have you
Pretty much.
considered this? Have you considered this? Oh, well, no, I've been focused on this. Well, if you did
Mm.
that, you wouldn't have to focus on as much as that, and you'd free up extra time. Oh, bugger me. Who would have
Mm.
thought? Oh, yeah. No.
Yes, I'm laughing because that is true. And I think it's just having like a deeper understanding of oneself, because you obviously you're with yourself all the time. You can't see yourself externally. So I find having worked with so many different people as well gives you that better understanding of how you're wired, how you operate as well.
Yeah, totally. And
Mm.
having someone
Mm.
that's prepared to be empathetic, stand on the shore with a rope
Yeah.
and just go, you know what? I've got a bucket load of tricks here that might help you, but
Mm.
I'm not going to throw them to you. You've got to be the one that wants to get them.
Yes. Yeah.
And you look at your
That's
space,
fine.
you've got a bunch of elements that you're going, I want this, 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 and this. You're
Mm.
asking the question, which makes it okay for them to say, would you like me
Mm.
to give you something? It's like, yes, the rope goes over.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you turn up and go, well, give me all the gold nuggets, give me all the whatever. So, well, no.
Which is what I
You,
used to do. I still
yeah.
sometimes do that.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
it's
"Tell me
like,
this,
look,
tell me this." Like, "Just calm down."
yeah, it's like, oh yeah. So I'm in this space. This is how so go. So what do you and generally in that space, I sit there, so what do you think you should do?
Yeah.
And then it's that you start to think about it, and then it's like, would you
Mm.
like me to give you an option that you may not have come up with yet? It's like, oh yeah, that'd be great.
Mm.
Righto. What about this? Bang.
Yes. Paul, I'd love to know if you could go back in time and meet Paul who was having a Coke and a picnic at the vending machine, what would your one bit of advice be to him?
Buy shares in Coke and Picnic. No. Um, so hindsight is a beautiful teacher.
Mm.
And so for me, the the element of love and value yourself, tell yourself the whole truth, take
Mm.
100% responsibility for everything in your space, which means that you create everything in your space. Good, bad, right, or wrong, doesn't matter. And so
Mm.
if you don't accept it, you can't take ownership for it.
Mm.
So if I was to go back, I would say again, standing outside, looking at me, reaching in, putting money into that machine to get Coke and Coke cans and picnics. I'd look at that to say, you're choosing to do this
Mm.
for what purpose? The piece of advice would be, if you were to value yourself, would you continue to do this?
Mm.
Yep. If you're going to be 100% honest with yourself, would you do this? Yeah. If you are taking ownership for your space, why are you choosing? For what purpose are you choosing to create all of this?
Mm.
And it is. We create everything that comes into our space, whether we actually cause it or not. We own everything. I used the example yesterday morning of the neighbor has a dog
Mm.
that's the size of a horse,
Oh.
and what do they produce? Stuff that's the size of a horse. So he's sitting there and he's chuck. This is a story, by the way, not reality,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
and
right.
and
I
he
was like,
sits
"Oh."
he sits there and he's chucking the dog stuff over the fence.
Oh,
Now,
right.
now
Yeah.
if I'm standing in my backyard and that's landing in my backyard, now I'm not
Oh.
causing that. But
Mm.
if I love and value myself, I'll say to the neighbor, "Hey Jethro, can you quit throwing that shit over the fence?" Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. Yeah, I
Mm.
said, "Can you stop doing that?" If I'm 100% honest with myself, I'll say, "I don't appreciate Jethro throwing that over the fence."
Mm.
And then if I take 100% ownership for everything in my space, I'm not causing that to end up in my space. But if I own my space, I sit there and I go, well, Jethro, can you stop throwing it over my fence?
Mm.
Or I
Yeah.
throw it back, or I throw it
I
back.
was gonna
Now,
say, do you throw it back?
if I don't love and value myself, then I
Mm.
don't have that conversation
Yeah, right.
because I don't want to be upsetting Jethro because we're
Mm.
neighbours, and I don't want him to think badly of me because I tell him to stop throwing stuff over the fence. If I'm not honest with myself, I'm not honest to look at myself and go, I really don't appreciate him doing that.
Mm.
Yeah. If I'm going to be honest, it's like, I don't appreciate having to just clean this up and chuck it in my
Every
bin.
time. Mm.
Bingo. And then if I take 100% ownership of everything in my space, I sit there and go, well, now there's stuff on my backyard that I have to clean up.
Mm.
Well, if I want that to continue, I just keep letting it turn up, like the people that don't want to change. They
Yeah.
just keep accepting the stuff that keeps thrown over the fence. If you don't
Mm.
own everything, you don't accept that that's not what you want, and you don't start having the conversation. What keeps turning up? The same stuff keeps coming over the fence.
True. Mm.
So you're not owning your own space, you're not honest with yourself, and you don't value yourself. So what's going
Mm.
to turn up? Whatever Jethro wants to keep throwing over the
Through
fence.
the wall.
And so, as a
Totally.
metaphor for business, it's
Mm.
exactly what happens in business when someone comes to your front door with a handful of 50s and
Mm.
goes, I want to come into your house. You've got a choice, yes or no.
Mm.
Generally, if they've got rubbish, if they've got mud on their shoes, you let them in, the door opens up, they go in, drink something from the fridge, chuck it on the floor, eat a sandwich, chuck it on the floor, walk around. You've got a white couch, obviously no
Oh.
kids, but white couch,
Mm.
and they've got mud on their shoes. They jump on the couch, and then they
Yeah.
walk out the front door. Now, would you let someone do that to your house?
Mm-mm.
No. Would you
No.
let someone do that in your business?
No,
Often,
you
the fact
shouldn't,
that
but yeah.
someone's holding a fistful of 50s, even if
Mm.
you let the men go through, there's no guarantee that they're going to give you the fistful of 50s
No.
because they may not pay.
True.
So at home, would we let them do that? No. Oh,
That's a good point.
in our business, we choose to sit there and go, "Come on in, and
Yeah.
your mates, bring your
Yeah.
mates as well. All of you, you got mud on your shoes.
Oh,
Jump on the jump. We got two
yeah.
white couches. Just jump on them both.
Oh, geez,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah." So as I say, the context around if you don't value yourself, and if I go back to where I wasn't valuing myself. I didn't
Mm.
love myself because I was putting everyone else before me.
Mm.
Was I being honest? No. And was I taking ownership for all of my space? No. So the fear of not being good enough was overruling any of that. So I'd go
Mm.
back and because I'm visual, I'd give myself a picture of those three things and a circle that says, you create everything in your space,
Yeah.
which would be a game changer. Because
Mm.
since that concept has been part of the way that I operate, since I lived through that, things have changed drastically.
Yeah. Well, Paul, thank you so much for sharing. Where is the best place for our listeners to go should they wish to connect with you?
A couple of places. So for individual businesses that want to be able to work one on one,
Mm-hmm.
then Mentoris Group. That's www.mentorisgroup.com.au.
Great.
In January, we're about to start group programs.
Oh,
So
awesome.
we'll have up to 8 businesses in a room, 0 to 2 million turnover, 2 to 8, and then 8 plus. And it's about 10 months program to rip apart the business, grip it and rip it.
Yeah.
It's high
It's a
growth.
great name.
Yeah, it's designed to be able to get things going, and that's Momentum Masters. So
Mm.
www.momentummasters.com.au. And I have a coffee table book out coming into Christmas, 23 publishing, which is also maybe a stocking filler.
Oh, great.
That's about, again, it's about my house, my rules, all of the little sayings.
Yes.
It's full of those. So there's 23 of
Oh,
them,
awesome. Cool.
black and white. It's beautiful, and they're just little reminders of, which is why it's called 23 reminders. It's
Mm.
and they're little things like talk doesn't cook rice, so take action,
Yeah.
and that's 23publishing.com.au.
Oh, great. And you shared that link with us as well, didn't you?
Yes,
Great.
yeah, yeah, I
We'll
did.
pop everything in the show notes and everyone can head there. Paul, thank you so much for all you shared. I really enjoyed our conversation. Like I say, I'm a big advocate for business advisory, coaching, mentoring. And if our listeners, if you're not engaging with someone, check out what Paul is doing or engage someone in your area if you're not in Brisbane, because it really will change your life.
Yeah, awesome, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to share some of my view of the world. Not saying it
Ah,
is the only view of the world, but an insight into the way that my mind works and the way that we do things is exactly what you've just got. So, what you see is what you get.
yeah, only a pleasure, Paul. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Take care. Cheers.